In my previous video, I showed how I made a demon lantern in Fusion 360 to improve my CAD abilities as well as work on my emotional and mental health. It's meant to house all of my inner demons. I used a variety of different technical abilities to texture the outside of the lantern, but what of demons? Now that I made this lantern, I had to get my demons into it somehow, at least symbolically. To do this, I came up with the practice of creating prayer slips. Or rather, like, anti-prayer slips? Demon slips? If I found myself lingering on a negative thought or sentiment, I would catch myself, write it, and cast it out of my day so that it didn't disable me. So there's something about demons and their lore where if you speak a demon's name, you take their power away from them. And I like this. I believe that this is why therapists recommend to so many people that they ought to do journaling, actually. I think that if you have the ability to write down your thoughts, which involves you understand them enough to write them down, you can assume control over them, and they don't have control over you. And it's always good to have control over your demons. All right, so to make my prayer slips, or my demon slips, I'm using BFK RIVES rag paper, which is sort of like a fabric. And to write, I'm using a CROW-QUILL calligraphy pen with a sharp nib, I guess. The two don't really go well together because the sharpness of this rips into the paper and you get a lot of clotting. I kind of like this though. It definitely gives a feel of what mood you're in as you are writing what you are writing. And my ink of choice is Doc Martin watercolor, which I've had these probably half of my life. I was actually kind of surprised that they're still wet and not dried out. So I tore a bunch of my BFK RIVES rag paper into little like fortune cookie sized morsels, and I keep them on my desk, and they're pre-punched and looped with like a little rubber band on them for hanging off of the lantern itself. After I tore, punched, and banded a whole bunch of them, I did even more, because this is 2020, and let's face it, I've had a lot of time to think about things. To adorn my demon slips, I made a wax stamp. Like this. I think the stamp is sort of like me punching the demon in the face. I learned in art school back when I was a teenager that there was this process of wax painting called encaustic. People would create masks, like death masks, or paint the outside of sarcophagi with layers of wax, because when wax is layered and it cools, it looks kind of like skin. It creates that subsurface scattering of the light. Our skin isn't completely opaque. The light goes into it a little ways before it bounces back out again. Not that anyone needs to know that. To paint in the encaustic process, we would heat up tea candles because they're already contained in their own little metal cups, and then you could mix tiny chunks of crayon into the tea candle wax to get different colors. It is ideal to have a mixture that is mostly tea candle wax and just a little bit of crayon. I used a ratio that was 1/4 of a tea candle to a piece of crayon that was about the size of my pinky nail. I found that if you heat up the wax so that it's molten and pour it immediately, it obviously spills all over the place like water. The proper thing to do is to wait until it cools enough that there's a skin on the top. If you pour slowly, the wax will stay in a confined area, relatively. It really is key to be patient and go slowly. The seal that I decided to make was the cow udders, my symbol for the year 2020. I found that it works best if you wait 10 to 20 seconds before you pull the seal back out again, but you really don't want to wait any longer, because if the wax cools entirely, you won't be able to pull it back out again. To account for all the things that I knew I was going to hang off of the lantern, I made a ring that has these little hooks on it, and The hooks were inspired by Noodle's toes, so there's a little bit of Noodle feet in the design of this lantern as well. So there's enough hanging points on this thing that I can just load it up indefinitely with the demons that I feel I need to keep at bay. Unexpected, since it's taken me so long to create this video and document this whole process with the demon prayer slips and the lantern, I've since gotten this guy, this flamingo. This little dude repeats everything that I say like a little asshole. I don't know if he's mocking me or if he's agreeing with me or commiserating with me. I'm not entirely sure how I interpret that, but it makes me laugh. I don't know, I kind of like the idea of having a robot that just mocks everything that I think. I'm afraid that
I'm afraid I have no value in the world. I'm afraid of dying alone. I'm afraid of my family catching COVID. I'm afraid I have underlying health problems that won't get addressed because I don't have insurance. I'm afraid I'll never have friends in my own city. I'm afraid I'll grow old alone. I'm afraid Trump will pull a coup. I'm afraid I'll never feel alive again. I'll never be able to support myself financially. I'm afraid I'll be forgotten when I die.
So it's New Year's Eve, and I'm gonna write down the very last of my negative things, thoughts, whatever, stuff that I don't want to take with me into the next year. So, yeah. And then I'm gonna hang them on the little lamp. The lamp. That lamp. A waxy stamp?
Demon card.
Would you like a demon slip, Mark?
What about a demon slip?
Oh, we should have chicken on.
Slippery demon.
The slippery demon.
The demon.
The demon has been awake.
The demon has been awake.
Solder for me, Mark.
Solder for me, Mark. Solder for me, Mark. Solder for me, Mark. Daddy.
Daddy.
Daddy. Daddy. Daddy. Daddy. Daddy. Daddy.
That's just creepy.
So I'm casting out all the things I don't want to take with me into 2021. Everything goes. So that is my project post-election to help me manage my emotional health and brush up on my technical ability. And I hope that any of that I just explained also helps you as well in some context, any context. So until my next video, keep making awesome stuff out there. Wear a mask on your face, and thank you for watching. Goodbye, 2020.
Goodbye, 2020.